Thank you, everyone. Please take your seats. In case you couldn't tell, that was my walk-up batting music, which I once told my Little League coach I would do in a Major League stadium. Who's laughing now, Coach Bowman? One more second. I'm just giving it one more second. Yeah. Governor Ducey, members of the legislature, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2022 Legislative Forecast Luncheon. My name is Danny Seiden. I'm the CEO and president of the Arizona Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And on behalf of the Arizona Chamber of Commerce and Industry and Manufacturers Council, I want to thank you for being here today with us at Chase Field. What a fantastic location. A special thank you to Derek Hall, the CEO of the Arizona Diamondbacks, for allowing us to convene on the field today. Today, we will present the Arizona Chamber's 2022 business agenda. Hear from Governor Ducey and hear from both House and legislative leadership about their priorities for the upcoming session. But before we officially begin, I would like to extend a special welcome to those elected officials and distinguished guests who are here with us today. We are proud to be joined by Governor Doug Ducey and over 40 members of the legislature, more than 24 state, local, tribal, and federal officials, including U.S. Senator Mark Kelly, who we are honored to be hearing from today as well. Please rise and be recognized if you're one of these distinguished officials. Thank you. At this time, I'll just ask you, please direct your attention to the screen to see the names of those distinguished guests. Rather than have me read them for the next 40 minutes, we're just going to post it up there behind me and save some time today. Elected officials and distinguished guests, I ask you, thank you. Got it. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Today's event would not be possible without the generous support of our sponsors. They invest in this unique event. Our presenting sponsors, Cox Communications. Our host sponsor, the Arizona Diamondbacks. Premier sponsor, Salt River Project and Arizona Governmental Affairs. Executive sponsors, Arizona Public Service. Spotlight sponsors, Amazon, Bristol-Myers Squibb, Embry Health, Jennings Strauss Salmon, Republic National Distributing Company, University of Arizona, and Verizon. And to our many valued advocacy, forecast, and table sponsors, thank you for your support. You have our sincere gratitude. For our guests who are active on Twitter, please follow our live tweets at AZChamber and retweet us today. If you look at the event hashtag on the screen, LFL 2022, we encourage you to post event photos and tag us. Now, I would like to welcome Arizona's newest member of the State Supreme Court, Justice Catherine King, to deliver our invocation.
Good afternoon. I'm grateful to be joining you all today to lead the invocation for this 2022 Legislative Forecast Luncheon. God, we offer you thanks for the beauty of this day. We thank you for this opportunity to gather together with people from throughout the state of Arizona for this luncheon today. We thank you for each and every one who is here today, as we ask for your hand of blessing on all of us and the people of the state of Arizona. We thank you, God, for the food we are all to receive, and for those who have grown, nurtured, and prepared the food for this luncheon today. We pray that the special meal served will nourish and strengthen each of us, as well as our relationships with one another. As we eat, help us to remember your provision and goodness with thankful hearts. We give you thanks and praise. Amen.
Thank you, Justice King. And now, please stand as you are able in welcoming the Mesa Police Department Honor Guard, providing the presentation of colors. Accompanying the honor guard is Jessica Kelly to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance and sing the national anthem.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets regular, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you to both the Mesa Police Department Honor Guard and Jessica. You may now take your seats. I am now very excited to welcome United States Senator Mark Kelly to the stage to provide some brief remarks. Because of the tightness of our program, I was not allowed to give a very long intro for such an accomplished person who's an astronaut, a Navy veteran. But because we're in a sports arena, I want to introduce him as a person who almost beat Green Bay Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers in Celebrity Jeopardy a few years ago.
Thank you, Danny. It's one of the more intimidating things I've done in my life is to go on Jeopardy. And but hey, great to be here. Great not to be in Washington where there's a ton of snow on the ground. So it's great to be back in Arizona. Good afternoon and Happy New Year, everybody. Thank you, Danny, and thank you for the very short introduction. Those are the best. And it's great to be here to come to speak to all of you to kick off the 2022 legislative session. Arizonans are best served when federal and state leaders work together to grow our economy. And I recently, about a month or so ago, marked 1 year in office. And it was a great opportunity for me to both reflect on some of the things that we've accomplished while I've been in the United States Senate. And that's including a bipartisan investment in Arizona and our nation's infrastructure. I also had a lot of time thinking, yes, on the infrastructure bill. I also spent a lot of time thinking about the work that lies ahead. Like many of you, I remain focused on our economic recovery. How do we continue to rebuild our economy, attract investment and talent, and lower costs for Arizona families? I spent this morning in West Mesa and Central Phoenix with small business owners at a restaurant called Moreno's Grill and a small shop called France's Boutique. Now, these are two iconic Main Street businesses. And it's businesses like these that were front of mind for me when I worked to include a community navigator program in the American Rescue Plan, which connects small and minority-owned business owners in places like Phoenix and Mesa and across our state to resources at the Small Business Administration. And even as we're protecting Arizona jobs and businesses, we also need to focus on creating the jobs of the future and preparing Arizonans to work in these jobs. That's why I worked with Republicans and Democrats in the United States Senate to negotiate and pass a deal through the Senate to boost the manufacturing of microchips here in our state. And we're working to get this bill across the finish line at the House and signed into law. So we've got a little bit more work to do on the CHIPS Act, but I'm convinced we're going to get there. And when we get it done, we will see growth not only in manufacturing, but also in research and development, which will ultimately drive continued investment in our state where we are already leaders, and that's in the microchip industry. Now, to support this growth, we will need the infrastructure that can keep up. Now, right now, Arizona is facing a severe drought that requires us to improve our water infrastructure and increase our water resiliency. Too many Arizonans, too many of us, lack a reliable and affordable high-speed internet connection. The expansion of I-10 between economic hubs like Tucson and Phoenix remain incomplete, and many other road and bridge projects are unfinished. And these aren't just safety issues, they're economic issues. It's been clear for decades that in order to compete, that we need to overhaul our infrastructure from here in Phoenix to Yuma, all the way up to the Navajo Nation. Now, after working with this bipartisan group, Republicans and Democrats coming together to draft and then pass this Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, I'm happy to say that this historic infrastructure investment, this investment is on its way to our state as we speak here today. As soon as this year, projects will begin breaking ground here in Arizona to improve water storage, to improve our drinking water, to upgrade our roads and bridges and modernize our ports of entry that support commerce for our entire state. Our ports of entry on the Arizona-Mexico border bring billions of dollars of economic activity to our state, and this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to reinvest in them. And what this means, it means more jobs, which are central to putting Arizona on a path not only to economic recovery, but also to economic growth. Now, we also need to make sure that Arizona has the skilled workforce for these new jobs, which is why we must support our top-notch educational institutions, from the University of Arizona to NAU and ASU, to community colleges and trade schools across our state. Every Arizonan, whether they pursue a four-year degree or not, should be able to learn the skills needed to get a good-paying job. This combination of education and jobs and infrastructure will be the key to our growth and development over the years and decades to come. But we've got some work ahead of us. Together, together, I know that we can lower costs for Arizona families. We can attract more companies to expand here. We can create more jobs here and ensure that our state continues to be the best place to live, to be the best place to work, to be the best place to start a business and raise a family for generations to come. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for having me here today, and I look forward to working together for the future of Arizona, and have a great day. Thank you very much.
Thank you again, Senator Kelly, for coming today and sharing with those important remarks, and thank you for the work you're doing in D.C. on behalf of Arizona, especially the CHIPS Act. We'll now take a brief break for lunch. Enjoy your meal, and we'll be back soon.
The way you use energy is unique. From the everyday to those unexpected moments, you need energy that is reliable 24/7, 365 days a year. Energy that grows as Arizona grows, supporting our thriving communities. Energy that protects our state's beautiful landscapes and resources for generations to come. Energy that keeps you cool in the hot summers and warm in our northern snows. Energy that keeps up with ever-changing technologies. Our lives revolve around energy. You can count on us to provide clean, reliable, affordable energy whenever and however you need it. Your life, your energy, our service. Working together every day.
Fans, it's time for the Legends Race, powered by Cox. Please welcome Gonzo, Maddie, Gracie, and RJ. And today's winner is RJ. Congratulations to all the fans who voted for RJ in the Ballpark app. And make sure to virtually meet the racing legends and other D-backs players. Take a pic and share by visiting cox.com/dbacks.
your face. Ain't my fault they all be jocking. Keep up. Players only. Come on, put your pinky rings up to the moon. Girls, what y'all trying to do? 24 karat magic in the air. Head to toe, so clear. Look out. Second verse for the hustlers. Gangsters. Bad than your friends. I cannot preach. I cannot preach. I gotta show them how a pimp get it in. First, take your sip. Do your dip. Spend your money like money ain't shit. Ooh, ooh. We too fresh. Got to blame it on Jesus. Hashtag blessed. They ain't ready for me. I'm a dangerous man with some money in my pocket. Keep up. So many pretty girls around me and they're waking up the rocket. Keep up. Why you mad? Fix your face. Ain't my fault they all be jocking. Keep up. Players only. Come on, put your pinky rings up to the moon. Girls, what y'all trying to do? What you trying to do? 24 karat magic in the air. Head to toe, so clear. Look out. Everywhere I go, they be like, oh, so bad. Everywhere I go, they be like, oh, so bad. Everywhere I go, they be like, oh, so bad. Now, watch me break it down like, 24 karat, 24 karat. What's that sound? Come on now. 24 karat, 24 karat magic. Don't fight the feeling, invite the feeling. Just put your pinky rings up to the moon. Girls, what y'all trying to do? Tell me what you're trying to do. 24 karat magic in the air. Head to toe, so clear. Put your pinky rings up to the moon. Girls, what y'all trying to do? 24 karat magic in the air. Head to toe, so clear. Look out. I can lift you up. I can show you what you wanna see and take you where you wanna be. You could be my luck. Even if the sky is falling down, I know that we'll be safe and sound. We're safe and sound. I can fill your cup. You know my river won't evaporate. This world we still appreciate. You could be my luck. Even in a hurricane of frowns, I know that we'll be safe and sound. We're safe and sound. We're safe and sound. We're safe and sound. I could show you love. In a tidal wave of mystery, you'll still be standing next to me. You could be my luck. Even if we're 6 feet underground, I know that we'll be safe and sound. We're safe and sound.
We hope you're enjoying your lunch. A special thank you to the Levy Restaurants team that have prepared and served our meal today. And if you were watching the video of the Legends race and you managed to place a wager, since sports betting is now legal thanks to the legislature, and you bet on Randy Johnson to win, I think you can collect your winnings at the Caesar Sportsbook at the front of the ballpark. I would now like to take a moment and thank one of our premier sponsors, SRP. We are deeply grateful for SRP's belief in our mission, service on our board, and engagement in our chamber. As I invite Mike Hummel, General Manager and Chief Executive Officer of SRP, onto the stage, I'd like to remind everyone the Chamber is committed to promoting safe, reliable, and sustainable delivery of power to Arizona's job creators, both now and into the future. Please direct your attention to the screen for a brief video.
It takes power to move forward and face the challenges of a changing world. To pioneer technology that protects our communities and the places we call home. SRP has been delivering power to people in the Valley for over 100 years. We're forging a path toward a brighter future and pursuing a diverse mix of clean, renewable energy sources, all so that our cities and communities can continue to thrive. Join us in moving forward together.
Well, good afternoon. It's great to be with everybody today. The video that you just watched shows how SRP takes action every single day to make sure that we have the water and power resources that we need in the Valley to really ensure that Arizona continues to grow. For more than 100 years, residents of the Valley have counted on SRP to make sure that we are bringing water and we're bringing power to the Valley, and we're doing it reliably. You hear SRP talking a lot about sustainability. You hear us talking about affordability. None of that matters if you don't have reliability, and that is core and central to what our mission is. I'm proud to say that in 2020, SRP was awarded the top reliability of any utility company, any large utility company in the country. We're very, very proud of that. That reliability is really key to the continued growth and the economic success of the Valley and the state. Like SRP, our elected officials are also working with their constituents and working hard to continue to promote Arizona and build a better future for all Arizonans. In our business, and I'm sure in all of yours, collaboration, cooperation, and civility are key to making sure that results are there at the end of the day and that we're finding solutions for the greater good. Those qualities will no doubt be very useful as you move into this legislative session and deal with policies like energy and water issues. There are going to be decisions that have an impact on this state for generations to come. To all of our legislators and all of our elected officials, thank you for your dedication. Thank you for your commitment. We appreciate the effort you're putting into it. And I think we all share the optimism for the opportunities ahead for all of us. So again, thank you all for being here and for the work that you do. Right now, I'd like to welcome up to the stage the chairman of the board of the Arizona Chamber of Commerce and Industry and the CEO of MomDoc, Nick Goodman.
To all you novice public speakers out there, don't eat the corn before going on stage. It gets caught in the throat. Today I wear two hats. I wear that as the chair of this great chamber and that as the MomDoc CEO. MomDoc is Arizona's OBGYN, where we help those very people that every company is looking to hire come into existence. They simply need to grow up. Allow me to share a few reasons why Arizona is successful. We all know the 5 C's of Arizona. The number one reason that Arizona is successful is AC. That was supposed to be funny. When I became the chair, they told me my jokes would be funnier. The modern air conditioner, invented 120 years ago, came at a time this area had 138,000 people. What would become New Mexico was 58% more populous. New Mexico beat Arizona to statehood by 1 month and 8 days, so happy birthday, New Mexico, a day ago. 110 years later, New Mexico was 6 times its starting population, and Arizona is 34 times its starting population. Yeah. So we crushed it. The second reason for Arizona's success is the business climate. Through good policy and wonderful leadership, we are fast growing while our neighbor to the east is stagnating. Why do we have a positive business climate? Arizona's heritage is that we avoid the siren sound of the short-term win with the disproportionate long-term cost. Rather, we balance today's emergencies and wants against tomorrow's needs and surprises. With predictability, businesses, individuals, families, and communities thrive. Arizona is prospering. Today's governor is part of our successful heritage. Governor Ducey, the Chamber applauds you for setting your example and standard of lowering taxes year over year during your administration. With the help of the legislator and the support of the citizens, Arizona continues to be a world where merit matters most. Recently, I took an Uber ride with a driver from the Congo who had lived 33 years in Belgium. He talked of how much he loves the United States. Keep in mind, he received a law degree when he lived in Belgium. What he loves about the United States over his other two homes is it doesn't matter who his parents are. He was surprised when he first applied for employment that he didn't need to share his family history, that he could succeed on his own efforts and didn't need to have connections. There are many states in the United States that value the core traditions and principles that have allowed America to flourish. It is an honor to count Arizona, among the states standing for free speech over newspeak, freedom over regulations, and self-determination over government guidance. The third reason for Arizona's success is the investment in and hope for the future. This year, we can protect many tomorrows by establishing common sense safeguards to our ballot initiative process, so it reflects the best interests for all Arizonans. The answer to many of the or questions that face lawmakers this session is yes. Should we more fully fund healthcare or education? Yes, fund them both. You get the idea. Now take this with you into a session, and let's balance today with tomorrow and continue to succeed in Arizona. Thank you for joining us today and into the future of business. You laughed and clapped. Thank you. Next, we will hear from our presenting sponsor, Cox Communications, Piercy Kirk, Senior Vice President and Regional Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I, for one, thought the AC joke was pretty darn funny. Good afternoon. On behalf of Cox Communications, welcome to the Arizona Chamber of Commerce Legislative Forecast Luncheon. We're honored to serve as the presenting sponsor for today's event, and we're proud of our long-standing partnership with the Arizona Chamber of Commerce. While I am new in my role as Senior Vice President and Region Manager for Cox's Southwest region, I'm not new to Cox, and I'm not new to Phoenix. I am returning after 20 years of working for the company in the Midwest, and I'm really happy to be back in the Valley of the Sun. As a family-owned business, Cox serves Metro Phoenix and Southern Arizona with residential and business, digital television, high-speed internet, security systems, and digital telephone over our own nationwide IP network. Our company generates $5.5 billion in total economic activity for Arizona each year, And in Arizona, we employ over 3,100 talented people who are out trying to take care of customers each and every day. We've also invested more than $2.7 billion in infrastructure in the past 10 years. And we don't have any plans to slow it down either, I'll tell you. We provide over 30,000 miles of fiber optic and coaxial infrastructure to provide all of these services. And it enables us to have the fastest speeds and most bandwidth available throughout the area. And clearly, like all of us, and this is a wonderful venue and it's wonderful to be with everybody today, but the pandemic changed our lives and it also changed our business. But it didn't change our approach. As people shifted more to working from home, school from home, telehealth options, what we found is what we typically would have as growth on our network for a 2-year period of time happened over a 2-month period of time. And so we started working closely with schools, with families, with elected leaders to figure out what we could do. And we worked through things like our Connect to Compete program, which is an affordable internet for low-income families with school-age children. And we provided more service than ever through that. And to expand on our digital equity programs, this last year we launched Connect Assist, and that serves qualified individuals and families in need with additional low internet cost options. We worked with government entities to provide service to people who couldn't afford broadband because, as you would expect, everybody has the need. And we did that through the Emergency Broadband Benefit Program and the Emergency Connectivity Fund. And so as important as making the internet accessible to all, it's reaching deep in the communities where we serve and operate and live and raise our families. And for those, we annually invest over $33 million in these communities that we serve to try to make it better. The relationships that we have are building, and we're building on them every day. And we're going to survive these uncertain times, and we have a lot of optimism. As our technology moves forward, you're going to be hearing more from us in the near future about 10G and new technology. Homes will continue to support remote work, digital learning, and telehealth options, and you're going to find that we are going to be prepared to provide all of these services to you. So stay tuned for speeds that are greater than 10 times faster. They'll transform our residential and business experiences. I think you'll like what you're going to see. And I want to thank you, Danny, and the Arizona Chamber team for putting together this event. I want to thank you for the partnership that you've created for all of us. With leaders like you and all of you elected leaders in the state, I'll tell you, it's pretty incredible to see the growth that has taken place, as you just heard, over the past 20 years, and I look forward to more. And with leaders like Governor Ducey, we are in really prime position to see that. So now it's my privilege to kick off today's fireside chat. So please join me in welcoming back our Arizona Chamber President and CEO, Danny Seiden, and Governor Ducey. Welcome.
Governor Ducey, thanks again for joining us today and being willing to share your vision for Arizona's future. I do want to take a quick moment and remind you where we're sitting. We're right next to this, where the pitchers pitch here, and Diamondbacks aren't known for throwing softballs. So get ready. I'm going to keep that tradition.
Well, hey, Danny, speaking of the Diamondbacks, can I just start by saying a special thanks to Derek Hall and Gonzo and Ken and Randy Kendrick for opening up their office to host us today for lunch. Pretty special.
Absolutely. Well, let's kick it off. By the time we're done, Howie Fisher is going to pack up and go home. There's going to be no need for him to stick around. 7 years, 7 states of the state. How do you encapsulate it all into a final session and a final goodbye?
Well, you don't. I mean, Monday is not a farewell address. It's a state of the state. It's a action-oriented agenda on what we're going to accomplish in this final session. You know, when I came into office, I spent some time with Mitch Daniels, who was the governor of Indiana, and Jeb Bush, who was the governor of Florida for 2 terms, and both of them shared with me that their most successful sessions were their 7th and 8th session. And I think if last year is any evidence to what's possible, we should aim very high, and I think you'll hear more on Monday. I'll give a few sneak peeks on what you can expect, but I think we will have a great accomplishment and achievement in which we'll be able to conclude this year.
Fantastic. Well, last year was one of the longest sessions in memory. Very slim majorities in both chambers. Do you expect it to go as long this year?
I really enjoy the long sessions. Governors don't sine die, and I love the Valley of the Sun in August. And, you know, Danny, you know this. I mean, I think we were part of the fastest session in Arizona history in 2015. Yep. And part of it was we didn't have any money. I mean, we literally had a $1 billion deficit and a budget that was not balanced. Things have changed quite a bit, so there's a lot of opportunity to do good things in this session, and I feel very fortunate that I can count Speaker Rusty Bowers and President Karen Fann as friends, so I know we'll be able to communicate along the way. And I'll tell you, when we have things that we need to get done, like on wildfires or on gaming, people like Reginald Boulding and Rebecca Rios have been terrific. So I think we will be able to have a very positive session, and it will end when we are complete.
Governor, I think you just ruined a lot of people's summer plans with that comment. I don't know that everyone enjoys session in August. But you mentioned sneak peeks. What's at the top of your priority list?
Well, like I said, I think this is going to be as big an agenda as we've put forward. And what I did like 7 or 8 interviews with the press before I came up here. And I don't know why we have this custom of meeting with the press on the Friday before the Monday State of the State, because to most of the questions, I answer, tune in Monday. I'll see you Monday afternoon. Well, you'll see that in the speech. But if I were able to say on some things where I think we have real opportunities and we'll have real energy, you will see something, of course, on water, which I believe is something we can address even further in Arizona. You'll see something very special on education, and then we also need more action on border security. You'll see all of those things and much more on Monday.
Great. Well, let's talk about the budget. The surplus is huge. The estimates keep growing, yet some of us are hearing talk of a skinny budget. What are your thoughts?
A skinny budget? Well, if by a skinny budget you mean less ongoing spending, less government and lower taxes, I'm all for it. We can finish up in a week, Mr. Speaker and President Fann. But, you know, that's the type of thing that would happen in Washington, D.C. That would be something that would be typical because they can't find a way to negotiate a budget to completion. We don't have continuing resolutions here in Arizona. We've actually been able to legislate. We've been able to reach across the aisle, and sometimes we have had to go to June 30th, but other times we've gotten done in late March. And I think about 90% of the legislation that we've passed over the last 7 years has been bipartisan. So I think this is a real differentiator on what's happening in Arizona, what happens at the state level, and I think you see it in a lot of the results and outcomes that we've had as a state as well.
Okay. Well, as someone who was there with you on day one, I have to ask, what have you learned on this job in the past 7 years, aside from apparently that you like really long sessions?
Well, I came from the private sector, and building a company is a heck of a thing to do. But I will say, when you come into the governor's office, there is a tremendous learning curve. You run all around the state for a year plus, and you answer every question under the sun, attempting to win the primary and then to win the general. And then once you are elected and are coming into office for the transition, you find out that you inherit a $40 billion combined budget, 35,000 state employees, 220 boards and commissions, and 44 state agencies that all report directly to you. And nobody ever asked a question about any of that along the campaign trail. So I do think that there's a tremendous learning curve. I think I've been fortunate to surround myself with an incredible team. Coming from the private sector was very helpful. I still wear a CEO hat every day. That's very much what the job is. But I will tell you, in business, there's one number you can focus on in terms of net profit, and it assures that you'll be here next year, and it ensures that you will have success. In state government, there's not one single number that determines your economic or future success. So I think getting our arms around the state government was a real learning. I still remember the first time I assembled those 43 heads of the state agencies, and it was very quiet in the room. It felt somewhat chilly, and I walked in and I said, I can hear what you guys are thinking. We'll outlive you. We were here before you came, and we'll be here after you leave. I don't know if you recall, but we had one member that was leading a state agency at the time who said that his objective during the Super Bowl was to sting Uber and shut down Uber and Lyft for the Super Bowl. He wasn't in the room the next time we met with the state agency heads. So it began a culture change that we had. And I am proud that each one of these agencies has a real mission in terms of what they want to accomplish. They can point to the metrics that will determine success for that agency. You can transparently see how the money is being spent, and there's a plan that's memorialized on what will happen in that agency the next 90 days. There's just simply not one single number that can determine success in a place like Child Protective Services. This is an agency that was probably the most broken agency in the country when we came in, and now we've got an individual there in Mike Faust who is actually invited to other states to show how we get these kids into safe, loving homes, how we keep families together, and how we take children when they are abandoned and in need of permanency into the adoption services. So from that standpoint, CPS and these other agencies have been models of success that other governors across the country are bringing to their states.
Excellent. We have a booming economy. We're top 3 in the country for growth. Lower regulatory, lower taxes. I know you hate the word legacy, but for you, over the last 7 years, what are you most proud of?
Our economy has been transformed. In 2014, it was about call centers. And today, it's everything under the sun, from electric vehicles to battery manufacturers to world-class semiconductor plants that will completely change the future of our state. Our relationship with Mexico has been restored. In 2014, 7 years ago, no chief executive had been to Mexico City in nearly 10 years. My first international visit upon being elected was to Mexico City. My first international trip upon being reelected was to Mexico City. So our relationship was rock bottom. Today, it's really, really good. And it's been through some very tough circumstances that we've been able to accomplish that. And then third, I would say we've been able to be leaders on policies across the country. We were the first state with universal recognition of occupational licensing. Now other states are doing that. We were the first state to bring on telehealth. Now other states are doing that. We were the first state to pass the American Civics Act in 2015. Now we have 30 plus other states that have done that. And lastly, I would say, I think we're plus 500,000 new people in this state, and we have a state government that is smaller by head count and yet more efficient. Those are all things I'm very proud of, and there's a lot more to come.
I would clap too, but I've got a microphone. You basically have two jobs right now. You're the governor of Arizona, and you're the chairman of the Republican Governors Association. In fact, you're the only Arizona who's ever held that title, and you're doing it for an unprecedented 2 years. Can you give us a preview of what 2022 looks like?
So thank you, Danny. Yes, I'm leading the RGA. I'm very honored that my peers asked me to do that. We've got 36 governor's races across the country in this upcoming year, so I'm very excited about it. And it's I want everyone to know my first focus is to be the Arizona governor. And you'll see that on Monday, and you'll see, even though I did this same job last year, we were able to have our best and most aggressive session ever. We'll be able to do that again this year. But those 36 races do include the most expensive and competitive states, places like Florida and Georgia, Ohio, Texas, and even the state of Arizona. And I'm going to care a lot on who my successor is in this state at the appropriate time. And I think we really have a data point from a RGA standpoint that we are in a position to have a breakthrough year. What happened in Virginia in November with Glenn Youngkin defeating Terry McAuliffe in a blue state that Joe Biden had won by 10 points, and to have a pretty significant victory over Terry McAuliffe with Glenn Youngkin running on issues like restoring Virginia's economy, like bringing opportunity to everyone in the state, and like giving parents choice in education, is not only a roadmap for candidates that are out there running now. I think it's a roadmap for this year's legislative session.
Excellent. Shifting gears a little bit, we can't really have a meeting like this without discussing COVID. What's likely to happen in the COVID front in 2022, in your opinion?
So I know this has really been something that's been top of mind for the past nearly 2 years, and certainly for me. One thing I want to mention is that my grandmother turned 98 the day before yesterday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Gammy. So this has been very personal for me the entire time. The first thing we knew as we came through the fog of the pandemic was that our most vulnerable were those that were 65 and older and had underlying health conditions. And it was March 11th that executive order went, where there would be no visitation inside these homes. And of course, while I wanted to protect my grandmother and everyone that was in that vulnerable position, it also was a double-edged sword because visitation is so important. So I also want to recognize all the pain and loss that has happened over these last 2 years. But through that, we were able to work with our healthcare sector and keep hospital capacity. Joe Biden said that we were the model state for vaccine distribution. I want to thank Michael Bidwell, the Arizona Cardinals, and State Farm Stadium to be the first 24/7 vaccination distribution site in the country. And today we have 100% of our citizens 65 years and older with at least one dose of the vaccine. So that's all very positive. I would say going forward, what you're going to see, of course, as Chamber of Commerce members, you're going to see our economy stay open and our businesses stay open. And most of all, you're going to see our classrooms stay open, and you're going to see our kids inside those classrooms. That's what you can expect.
As a parent of 3 kids, we appreciate that. You made some waves this week in line with that last answer on the announcement that Arizona will offer relief to families in the form of things like child care and transportation costs if their school closes. Can you tell us why you made that call?
We need to have our kids back in school, and you don't have to take this from me. This is, we've heard a lot of times over the last 2 years, follow the science. Well, this is what the scientists say. This is what the Secretary of Education says. This is what President Joe Biden says. We want to keep our kids in the classroom. We want to get them caught up, and you're going to hear more about that on Monday. And if there is someone out there that is going to play a game with schools or school districts or school boards, we're not going to tolerate it in Arizona. We're going to give that financial flexibility to the parent and let them find the education they need for their child on day one of that game playing.
You know, we have a stronger economy, and with our stronger economy, I get this question a lot. Are we going to be overrun by Californians?
I think that's a mischaracterization in many ways. Let me ask this crowd. How many people gathered here today were born somewhere other than the state of Arizona? So I used to do that a lot on the campaign trail because a lot of people want to tell you how many generations their family was here. I'm a newcomer. There's many newcomers. We have been an inviting state for decades. We'll continue to be an inviting state. Growth is a good thing. It's a gift. Any business person that's faced the alternative knows that. And I do think Americans vote with their feet. People are leaving these other states, and it's not just California. They're leaving for a reason. And I think the things that we've partnered on, from the governor's office to the Chamber of Commerce, things like lower taxes, lighter regulation, a more welcoming environment in which to do business and scale a business, are where people find a better life. It's a better place to grow up and raise a family and educate your child. And if you look at the states that are the fastest growing states in this nation, they have those policies. And if you look at the states where there is that exodus, those are the states that are being managed like many of mayors across the country are managing large cities. They're not protecting the citizens. They're not making it a place welcoming to investment. And those are things we're going to continue to do in Arizona. And when people fly over Arizona or go elsewhere, that's when we should be concerned. We want to be the most attractive place in the world in which to live. And I have a lot of confidence with the momentum and energy we have right now. We're not just in for a boom year in Arizona. We are in for a boom decade.
You mentioned campaigns. You mentioned that first campaign, which I recall. So speaking of candidates, any advice you would have for those seeking to replace you in this upcoming election? You've won several statewide races. Some of us may have participated in them. I'm not going to say who, but yes, you know, any advice that you may have?
Well, I've got to know or meet many of the candidates that are running for the different offices, and some of them actually call and ask for advice or want to sit down and visit, and my door is open in those settings. So I'm going to keep all of those conversations confidential because I think it takes a bit of courage to put your name on a ballot and go into the public square. You're going to have to put up with a lot in which to do that, and I hope to continue to be the type of environment and public square which will attract good people to participate. But if I had overarching advice, it would be get out among the people. Know why you are running and what you want to accomplish and communicate it. And get into rooms where you're not necessarily comfortable. One of the things I enjoyed was getting all across the state. Of course, I'm very comfortable talking to a chief executive officer or business decision maker, but there are rooms where you will be there for the first time, and I think that's important. One of the things I'm proud of is to win re-election in 2018 with 44% of the Hispanic vote against an opponent that many would have thought his surname would have been an advantage. And I think that was because we were talking about empowering parents with school choice, because we talked about dignity in all work and climbing the economic ladder. So if you're running statewide, it's an incredible experience. It's amazing to me how many Arizonans only really know the Valley of the Sun, Phoenix or Tucson, and maybe Flagstaff. You get all over this great state. You're going to go through the ringer at the Mojave Day picnic in August, as you should, and you should try to earn every vote along the way. That's how this game is played and won. And the other thing I will say is, of course, you're going to have a stump speech. Of course, you're going to have a plan, hopefully, and you're going to want to run on that. But you will also learn a tremendous amount by getting into these rooms. I really tried to outwork all my opponents. I think in many situations I was the first person in the room and the last person to leave the room. And you certainly see some themes and consistencies and unifying threads of what's on the voter's mind, what's important to them, and that's part of the campaign process, and may the best leaders win. But in terms of anything beyond that, the elections are a long ways off. We have a full legislative cycle in front of us, and then the games can truly begin.
Great. Well, let me ask you about a relationship with the federal government, especially considering your perch from the chair, as the chair of RGA. How is the health of federalism right now? You know, the balance of powers and responsibilities between state and federal government. It seems like there's a lot of interplay. You've mentioned the president a lot today. We had Senator Kelly speak. Curious on your thoughts on the health of that system.
Well, I'm concerned about where we are in terms of federalism. This is the third president that I've now worked alongside. It's been the one that has been the least interested in what the states think. There seems to be a governing philosophy in Washington, D.C. under the Biden administration that is top-down, one-size-fits-all. Governors seen more as lower middle managers in the federal corporation. That's dramatically different than what the Trump-Pence administration was like, and I give Vice President Pence a lot of credit because he was a governor, and I think he was able in many situations to say this is an issue that can be handled at the state level, and in many of those settings, those things were pushed right to us. And even with President Obama, he saw real value in meeting with governors. We met with him at least once every year. Every single governor was welcome into the room. The press was removed, and there was a pretty spirited exchange back and forth, but it was appreciated. And I think that kind of communication, there's certainly many things, I believe, that can be solved at the state level, and there's other things that we do need the federal government to do, but my experience is the federal government tries to do too much, does most of it poorly, and would be better off if they would push these dollars and these programs to the states and let the states be the laboratories of democracy. I mean, we are very competitive as governors, but we're also very collegial. You know, if there's a fire, as there recently was in Colorado, well, I talked to Governor Jared Polis to say, what can Arizona do for Colorado in this setting? But I do think that governors are also competitive in terms of the economic development. You know, it wasn't all that long ago that companies were flying over the state of Arizona to Texas to relocate there. And now I would say to you, in every one of these settings that Sandra Watson, yourself, and I sit in on, and these are the biggest opportunities in the country. Our pipeline has never been more full. We are in competition, of course, against Texas and Florida. For some reason, California and New York often find themselves on the list, not so much for competitiveness, but because they're willing to pay for a company. And then Tennessee has been a recent newcomer. And I think when you see governors in those types of situations, that's things that will help a state. If people don't want jobs and opportunity for that state, they don't have to participate in those types of settings. But that's something that has benefited Arizona. It's something we haven't had any help from Washington, D.C. on, nor do we want any help from Washington, D.C. on that, save one issue, which was Taiwan Semiconductor, which I think people are starting to get an understanding of what a big deal this will be for our state. This is a company that could have gone anywhere in the country or anywhere in the world, and they certainly looked at every state in these United States. And Secretary Mike Pompeo, Secretary Wilbur Ross, Secretary Mike Esper, both the Defense Department, the Commerce Department, and the State Department all know the importance of semiconductors to connectivity and communication in today's American innovative economy while protecting self-defense. And that was probably the most competitive situation in the last decade. And in that setting, Arizona won, hands down.
And they're a great Chamber of Commerce member as well. TSMC is in the crowd today. You know, I was just given the sign to close out, and it's a little bit sad because this is it. This is the last legislative forecast luncheon before your final session as governor. I don't think that'll be the end of what we see from Governor Ducey. But with that in mind, what final words do you have for our audience?
Thank you. I would like to say thank you for everything that Chamber has done. I have been able to work with the people in this stadium shoulder to shoulder for the past 7 years. We have been able to pass real policies that have transformed our economy and our state to make us the #1 state in the nation in which to do business, for net in-migration, for quality of life, for policy achievements around educational choice and tax reform. There's an incredible amount left to do in this session on issues like water, education, and protecting our border. But I want to say that as hopeful as I am for what we can do in this session, I really believe in my heart that the best for Arizona is yet to come, and it starts on Monday. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor Ducey. And I just want to say I don't think there's a need for a gaggle anymore. I think we covered everything, so you're good to go. Thanks, Gov. So before we jump to the next segment of our program, I'd like to take a moment and highlight the Chamber's business agenda. At your table, you'll find a copy of the 2022 Business Agenda, which outlines our state and federal priority issues. Building on our accomplishments of last session, we will continue to pursue policies that cut red tape and reduce litigation for business owners. We will support efforts to expand access to high-quality schools for all, improve education outcomes, empower parental choice in education, and prepare our students for to be the workforce of the future. We will advocate for investments in strong and modern infrastructure critical to Arizona's job creation, economic prosperity, and overall competitiveness. We will be a vocal proponent of free market principles that support employers and entrepreneurs and advance Arizona's standing as a premier destination, the premier destination in which to work and do business. We will champion common sense safeguards to prevent out-of-state activists from using our ballot initiative system that harm our competitive standing. And yeah, feel free to clap on that. There we go. I think that was Senator Leach who started that one. To the members of the legislature, you can bet we're not done fighting yet. We look forward to working with you and Governor Ducey closely to continue to build Arizona's economy, maintain a welcoming place and welcoming environment for Arizona businesses of all sizes. But now we can move to the portion of the program that you've all been waiting for, our legislative leadership panel. We are fortunate to count on the participation of a very special guest moderator, a veteran of the Arizona legislature and the Chamber 2021 Heritage Award honoree, Representative Art Hamilton. And a model of civility as well. Representative Hamilton and legislative leaders, please take your seats on the stage while we welcome Gretchen Jacobs of Arizona Governmental Affairs to the podium to introduce you. Gretchen is a longtime sponsor of this event, and we are glad to have her with us again as a premium sponsor.
Thank you, Danny. My firm, Arizona Governmental Affairs, is a longtime supporter of the Legislative Forecast Luncheon. A little known fact, though, for being here with the Diamondbacks, my cousin played first base a few years ago for the Diamondbacks, but then was traded and was replaced by Goldschmidt, which I hate to say was probably a good trade. But anyway, we're pleased to sponsor today's events, which in many ways is a comeback event for all of us. Thank you to Danny and the Arizona Chamber for convening Arizona's business community and policy leaders to kick off the 2022 legislative session. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce our panel of esteemed legislative leadership. Here with us today is House Speaker Rusty Bowers, Senate President Karen Fann, House Minority Leader Reginald Bolding, and Senate Minority Leader Rebecca Rios. We also have the privilege of being joined by the Honorable Art Hamilton, who served in the Arizona Legislature or House for 26 years, including 18 as Minority Leader. He's graciously agreed to lead us in our discussion today. Thank you all for being here. I know we're all eager to hear about the key priorities and predictions for the 2022 legislative session, so let's get started.
I get to wear my hat. I only agreed to do this because I can wear my hat. This is the championship hat for the 2001 World Championship. Before you leave, take a look at that trophy. It says Arizona Baseball 2001, we rule the world. Enjoy it. I also got to meet Baxter, and Gonzo shook my hand. So anybody that I meet after that, please don't touch my hand. It's good for the moment. I love Danny and I love the chamber, but I must tell you I was a bit affronted that when I got here, they were concerned about I might lose my cards. They wrote my name, Art, on it. It's like pinning your child's name when he's in the kindergarten. My first, I believe, order of business is to begin asking questions of these distinguished members of the legislature. Some people have asked, why are you guys going to meet on the second Monday in January? They don't want to meet on the second Monday in January. The Constitution requires they meet on the second Monday in January, but they're ready for the job, I can tell you that. The first question I have is, and you should always start with the Senate. However, I spent 24 years in the House. I'm starting with the House. But I did get permission from the Senate President. Speaker Bowers, as we head into the legislative session, change of membership, how do you perceive that affecting the legislative session with all of the new folks who are going to be in the building for the first time?
Test. Having met them in their swearing ceremonies, and I would tell my wife I'm going to be sworn at, and then, oh yes, I'm going to swear in. But we have a wonderful group of new legislators, and I hope that they will moderate some of the habits of us older folks. And I personally feel that it will be much better, Art, in the communication and deportment. I think generally people see that we need to improve in those areas, and I look forward to it. I think they'll be a great addition.
They said it would be on. It's on now. Most of those folks, the new folks, are going to be in your caucus. How do you believe they're going to affect the way you provide the great leadership you provide to the caucus now?
You know, we're really excited about the new members in our caucus. One of the things that have been a great asset to the House Democratic Caucus has been the diversity. I mean, we have small business owners who are coming, architects, educators, experts in affordable housing, technology, finance. This new group of appointees bring a diverse perspective and experience. I know I definitely plan on tapping into their leadership, and I know they'll add a lot of value. So we're excited about the session, and we know that they'll hit the ground running.
Well, if anybody can do it, you all can on the House side. Madam President, in this increasingly difficult and sometimes divided or divisive political atmosphere in the country, how do you see that affecting what you all are going to begin doing in January of this coming Monday?
It's going to be interesting. You know, we are, as you know, we are into our second year of our session. We still have 16 and 14 and 31 and 29. So we will be needing to work very, very closely with our Democratic caucus members as we try to do as much as we can, although it is difficult sometimes because of different budget priorities, things like that. But, you know, it's going to be tough. This time last year, we were hit with COVID, and to an extent that we didn't even really know what COVID was going to do. We did not know if we were if we were going to have to shut down before we got a budget done or anything. So one of the things we're going to try and do this year is try to get back to as normal as possible. We do realize that we still have a COVID problem, but thank God we've got vaccines and boosters, and we know what to expect now. So we will make some accommodations for those that are vulnerable. We will make sure that we keep sanitizing every hour frequently and making sure that we keep it as safe as possible. But we're going to take it one day at a time, and we hope that we will be able to do a truly amazing job for the citizens of Arizona. As the governor said, we've got lots of money to work with. Let's do some great things with it.
I have always wanted to be around a legislative leader that said we got lots of money to work with. Didn't happen in my time there. Senator Rios, how would you respond to the same question?
Well, I think we have a unique opportunity to work together this year. There are some very pressing issues in Arizona that I'm hopeful that Democrats and Republicans can come together to address. One, I think, which is first and foremost, and I'd like to see us address it within the first 2 weeks of session, is this arbitrary expenditure limit that our public schools are under. If, in fact, we don't address this by March, we are essentially going to be requiring all of the school districts in Arizona essentially to cut $1.2 billion of revenue that we have already appropriated to them, which would be devastating, clearly. That would undo teacher raises. It would undo additional money we've given for special education, et cetera. It is an expenditure limitation that we can resolve with a resolution. So I'm hopeful we will do that. The other issue, which has been mentioned a couple times already today, is with regard to water. I think that is the most pressing issue and one that is nonpartisan, and I'm hopeful that we'll get to work on that quickly as well.
I'm glad to hear that. I do know that we all, from time to time, if you live in the desert, understand the value of water, and I think it will need a lot of attention. I sat next to Justice Montgomery at lunch, so I showed him this question. He enjoyed it. Are there any plans to accelerate budget conversations or handle the budget discussions differently given the recent Supreme Court ruling this summer? Anybody who wants to start with that one can have it.
I'll start. I'll start here. Look, the reality is that there's been an arbitrary rule in place at the state capitol that has said that you only can pass a budget with just one members of a party, particularly a Republican Party. And, you know, quite frankly, we believe that, you know, the state of Arizona, the citizens, they want lawmakers to work together. Whether you're Republican or Democrat, they want us to work together. And I can definitely tell you my time at the legislature, we've always had an open door on policies. We believe that you can create a robust budget that works for everybody with good ideas from Republicans and also good ideas from Democrats. So we're going to absolutely, share our vision. We're going to have conversations with both the speaker and the president and really hope that we can actually get in the room to get things done.
I do know that our chairs have been prepping for the budget. They've been doing a lot of work ahead of time. In the House, we're going to do more subcommittee work. There's twice as many of us, and we still try to fit in the same parking lot size, but gratefully I get to have some say for at least one spot there. And we anticipate that there will be some, as the governor has mentioned, some substantive investment in water and infrastructure, in education, and in other infrastructure projects across the state. And we would like to move those along. But those budget discussions are in gear with the members, and I know the individual interviews have been going on, and hopefully they can be productive.
I'll go ahead and jump in, President. I think given the recent Supreme Court ruling, it's an opportunity, and we saw the budget drag on this past session because folks wanted their pet projects put in the budget. But at the end of the day, if those policy issues can't get through based on their merit through the process in the legislature, they shouldn't be rolled into the budget. And so I was happy to see the Supreme Court uphold that and cite Rios v. Symington that addressed that issue many years ago in the 90s. But again, I think I'd like to just expound upon what Leader Bolding has said. There are many members of the Democratic caucus that have been more than willing to work with our Republican counterparts. And I think at the end of the day, if we truly were striving to get a budget that represented Arizona, it would cut off the far left, it would cut off the far right, it would take the middle, and we could pass a budget that everyone would support.
And I agree with Senator Rios. She's one of my favorite people to work with because she is grounded and down to earth, and I know that she and I have always tried very hard to make sure we can work together, and that's what it's going to take because, as I mentioned before, the one-person margin, that's the difficult part. So when we have members that says I'm a no on the budget unless I get X, it creates a problem. And that's why we were there 171 days last session. So it's time that we need to start working together. And I'll tell you the truth, the courts actually did us a favor, didn't they, Speaker Bowers, when they ruled this way and said, nope, no more crossing that line anymore.
I think the problem you always run into when you have bodies that are that close is that everybody from time to time decides they want to play king or queen for a day. It can make for a very long session. The governor indicated that we have, he said lots of money. God, I wish I could. Anyway, he said we have lots of money. I'd like to ask the four of you, what are your caucus's major priorities for how we ought to be spending that money that we in fact do choose to spend?
I'll start, and we'll go this way this time, right? Because I think we're all going to be pretty much on the same page on this. First and foremost, we know that our drought contingency plan was an amazing plan, and we've hit those triggers already. So we have to move up our schedules and our planning for future water resources and conservation. With this additional money, we will have the opportunity to be able to do some investing in our water issues here. Many of you may not know that 75% of all the water used in Arizona is for agriculture. We have to protect that industry, but we can do that by finding ways for them to produce not only what they're doing now, but even more, but let's do it in a better way and use less water. And there are a lot of other innovative things we can do. K-L education, higher education will always be a huge priority for, I believe, all of us. That is unchallenging. And of course, things like infrastructure, making sure that we keep our roads safe, our public safety, those are always going to be the top issues, and we're very fortunate that we have such a great economy to have the money to be able to invest in those items.
Yeah, I think we're looking at about a $3 billion surplus, and I too, Art, have been around in times where there was no money and we had to make cuts. And so we are in, I think, a really unique opportunity not only to invest long-term in Arizona when it comes to water, but also to invest in our public school system. And basically, I mean, we're talking about infrastructure. Democrats have prioritized funding for infrastructure, for increased teacher pay. I mean, the needs continue to be large in public education, and despite the investments that have been made, we are barely back to the per pupil expenditure amount that we were at in 2008. So we have a lot of catching up to do. I think in addition to that, you hear a lot about the inability for folks to find workforce, especially in behavioral health and mental health services. I think we need to look at our reimbursement rates to ensure that they can hire folks to take care of our most vulnerable people. The needs are long in Arizona, but I think that this opportunity is one for us to really invest in things that are going to push Arizona forward and take care of Arizona's residents.
Thank you. I'm grateful to be one of the failures of the past education system. As a four-generation Arizonan, both of my parents were teachers, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, teachers. I'm grateful that they prepared themselves, and I think they did a great job in educating in their time. We spend about $300,000 per classroom in Arizona. We hit an expenditure limit because we've been spending, and we will continue to spend in the future and make those investments. I am personally grateful, as Karen said, for the decision of the Supreme Court, and I look forward to their future decisions on issues that were entertained last week, and I hope that they're wrapped up soon. I believe that education is more than classroom, that education is home, and I would invite us all to go home and to make sure that our homes are places where we incubate learning, where families control social media, where we direct our children and give them a sense of responsibility, and combining that and not just punting to the school system to raise our children, but together working with our school system, being more proactive in our involvement in our school systems at the board level and beyond, that we can make a big difference, not just with the money that we will be spending in buckets. Thank you.
So right now here in Arizona and across the country, really across the world, COVID-19 and the pandemic is still an issue. And while we've seen incredible help from the federal government, really that has provided an opportunity for, small businesses here, individuals to really help them get back on their feet. We know that there's still more work to be done. So for us, when you look at Arizona, one of the things that you're consistently seeing is as a housing crisis. It is very difficult for individuals to not only rent homes, but it's difficult for individuals to buy homes. So when we think about affordable housing and our housing crisis, this is an area that we absolutely should be able to tackle, especially as we are a state that has growth and people will continue to come here. We have to make sure they have somewhere that they can actually lay their head. Along with that, when we talk about education, it absolutely is much more than just student spending. We have to look at infrastructure. We have schools that are crumbling. And if I could think of anywhere where Republicans and Democrats should be able to work together, it should be on school facilities. To have the ability to create schools that are going to work, that are going to be built for our kids to be safe in, that are going to provide jobs. That's an area that we should be able to work collectively together and get things done. And my hope is that this session we can make that a reality.
In my time, they always talked about if you believe education is really expensive, you ought to consider the cost of ignorance. It seems to me to be something that you all have tackled and are tackling. This is the chamber function. My friend Burton Barr, God rest his soul, always told me that taxes should be simple, predictable, understandable. There's seldom all three of those on any given time. What can we tell our chamber members and actually all the rest of the folks in this state about tax policy, and what do you see coming out of this next session, if anything, that might directly affect not only individuals but businesses as well?
One thing I'd like to thank Mr. Toma and Mr. Mesnard, who led out on pushing the tax rate down to 2.7% on the bottom end, and we're already seeing the effect of that. people vote with their feet. This state is such a terrible state that everybody wants to move here. And we do need the water, though. So if we could, and possibly, Art, one of the things we should do to improve our use and even beyond where we are now is that we say, you know, the cost of water would reflect this value. But I'll leave that to Mr. Boulding to propose the amount, and then we'll go from there. But we have done well. We want to protect where we are, and we want to see how it works. Too often we make a step forward and then we say, oh, well, we can do better next year. Well, sometimes it's best to see, will it work? What is the effect? And then make course corrections along the way, which is what we do rather well. But there are a lot of proposals coming in, as you might imagine, this close to session, and we will sift through them. And I look forward to Mr. Boulding and the rest of our caucuses working together in the House, as we will see in the Senate.
We are going to, for a very brief moment, make you all legislatures of one. You are the Arizona legislature at this moment. What do you want to see happen by the time you adjourn sine die that is not now occurring or at force in Arizona? And we'll start this time with Mr. Boulding and come this way.
You know, one of the things that we have consistently seen, really, I would say over the last several years is increased rhetoric that has been at both ends that have really in many parts made it very difficult for people to work together. I mean, the reality is that we have so many opportunities to work together, and if you take a step back and you look at many bills that are on the board, they are bipartisan bills. But the things that really matter the most are areas where we both should roll up our sleeves and make those things a reality, like the budget, because I do believe great ideas come from a lot of different people. You don't have to have an R or a D behind your name to have a good idea. So my hope is that we allow that, you know, the rhetoric that we're seeing via social media and in the comments on websites to not be the rhetoric that we're using inside of the chamber. We are actually representing the people that are sending us there, and we're standing up to the outside voices that may be forcing us in one direction or the other. And I think we have an opportunity to do that, but it's going to take strong leadership, and it's also going to take us being willing to piss a couple people off.
Well, that's a scientific term.
It's probably been heard in this ballpark before, but there's a book that Michelle Udall challenged us to read about conflict, and that there's a signature description of some individuals that they are conflict entrepreneurs and that their currency is conflict. And Art, you and I have been around this place for a long time. The Rios legacy as well, right? And we have seen individuals that their only measure of power is if they can make conflict and put you back on your heels right off the bat. And what we need are more people who are resolute in saying we will work together. Right, Mr. Boulding? We will work together. Our process encourages a meat grinder, but out of that we want to make good sausage. And if we can all focus on that recipe of civility and respect, even respect for the institution and its rules that you did so well and oversaw so well for me as a young wannabe legislator, and up till to now, this institution was created to advance us thoughtfully. And I hope that we can do that.
Thank you for the question, Art. I guess my short list would be that Democrats and Republicans could come together to invest, obviously, in water, to invest in our public education system, and that we would not see any additional attempts to create obstacles to our right to vote. I think that is sacred, and I'm hopeful that we can thwart off any threats to that. Thank you.
And I echo Representative Boulding's and Representative Bowers, Speaker Bowers' comments regarding the rhetoric and regarding civility and making sure that we try and work together. I hope we get out of this session alive and in one piece. I hope that we can do it cheerfully and thankfully and graciously. We have a tough election year for many people ahead of us, and I hope that that doesn't bleed over onto the floors. And there's one thing that we did not mention I'd like very quickly just to mention as another item, I think all four of us in both chambers, is we are seeing an ever-increasing homeless situation here in Arizona, as other states have. And with those homeless situations, we are seeing increased mental illness. And I would like to put that out there on the table as well, that I think that is another important issue that Arizona needs to face and address this year with some of that extra money to see if we can fix that problem. So with that, thank you all very much.
I am getting a cue that we probably ought to wrap up, but let me suggest this to you. As somebody who had the benefit of 26 years in the Arizona legislature, I will tell you that despite what people have often said and what they believe, these folks are very open to having you come and help. Democracy requires a participatory group of citizens who simply don't elect people and then turn away for 2 years. They not only need your help, they want it. I believe that everybody has something to contribute, and everybody needs to be sure that at the end of the next session, we're not just complaining about what didn't happen, but we got in with both feet and we tried to make a difference. I believe in the legislative process. I believe in the folks who are here. And I think we can, in fact, if we all decide to work together, we can make Arizona the kind of place that despite what people are complaining about people coming here, I want them all to come here if they can bring some water with them. God bless. Have a good day. Have a good year. And I believe Danny is going to come up and have the last word as the president of the chamber should.
Thank you very much, Representative Hamilton. That was great as always. Thank you to all of our legislative leaders for taking time to do this today. Special thank you again to the Arizona Diamondbacks for letting us convene on the field, to Cox Communications, our host sponsor, to the wonderful chamber staff, Christina McDonald and Laura Siscamani, who helped put on this event. On behalf of our chamber team, we wish you a safe and healthy new year, and we look forward to seeing you all at the Capitol next week for a home run of a session. Dad joke. You got it.